Hello everybody, it is Brian for GadgetUnit.com, and in this video I'll be bringing you my little video review of the HTC One. So this particular model is available for Sprint, and you can pick it up for $199 with a new 2-year agreement or upgrade. In terms of performance, this device is no slouch, so let's go over the specs. The processor is a quad-core Qualcomm Snapdragon 600 running at 1.7 GHz. There are 2 GB of RAM, that's DDR2. In terms of storage capacity, 32 GB and 64 GB models are available. There is no expendable storage because there is no micro SD card slot. The battery is 2300 mAh, but it is not removable. More on that in a little while. The display, as you see on your screen now, is 4.7 inches with a resolution of 1080 by 1920. Now, compared to the Galaxy S4's 5-inch 1080p display, since we're dealing with this actual smaller screen, the pixel density is much greater at 468 dots per inch. The rear-facing camera is 4 megapixels. HTC calls this the ultra-pixel camera, more on this in a little while, while the front-facing camera is 2.1 megapixels. This particular phone is running Android 4.1.2 with HTC Sense 5. Sprint hasn't really said anything about an upgrade to 4.2.2, but really the user experience on 4.1.2 is very good. So first off, let's start off with the design of the HTC One, and HTC really wanted to differentiate themselves, moving away from the traditional plastic smartphones that most Android devices are made out of nowadays. So the One features a full metal body with a zero gap construction, meaning that there's no gap between any of the parts on the phone. The edges of the device are tapered, so that gives you a bit of a design element to appreciate. And the rounded back makes it so that the phone is very comfortable to hold, especially in one hand. Now, speaking of one-handed operation, the HTC One is very comfortable and easy to use with one hand. So other than reaching some of the corners of the screen, sometimes it's a little bit difficult, especially if you plan on using a case with the device. So let's go over a tour of the phone, starting with the front since we are already there. Here you can see the 4.7-inch 1080p display. Looks very good, more on that in a little while. We have dual front-facing speakers, more on that in a little while as well. We have some sensors right to the top left. The front-facing camera is to the top right. And there's also a colored LED indicator behind the speaker grill towards the left. On the right side we have our volume rocker with sort of a spiral metal texture to it, or pattern rather. These buttons give you a fair amount of click when pressing them, but compared to the power button at the top, the power button does not give you pretty much any click at all, and there's not really much travel when pressing it, so the actual depth of the button isn't very great. The power button, though, also doubles as an infrared blaster, allowing you to control things like your TV, your cable or satellite box, or your Blu-ray player, things like that. Up top, there's also the 3.5mm headset jack. On the left side, we just have our micro SIM card slot. On the bottom, we have our USB port. So on the back, we have our beautiful full metal body design. Some antennas right there. Here we have our 4 megapixel ultra pixel camera at 4 megapixels. And to the left of that, we have our LED flash. You can also see some HTC branding as well as some Beats audio branding, so more information on that in a little while. In terms of the weight, I think it's not too heavy and it's not too light. I think it's just about right. So in terms of weight, it weighs 143 grams. So I think that this is definitely the optimal weight for a smartphone. Overall, the design is simply fantastic. This is definitely quite the looker, especially compared to any other device out there on the market. To me and to many others, this is definitely the best looking device out there, even compared to the iPhone 5. I will go as far as to say that I would easily prefer this device over an iPhone 5. So let me talk a little bit more about the display. Let me just turn it on real quick. So because the pixel density is very high, text and images look completely sharp and very clear, as good as you can get. Sometimes it looks as though there's a simple printed image just sitting on top of your display because it just looks so amazing. And I would have to go as far as to say that this is the best display on any smartphone on the market. You can also use this outdoors in direct sunlight, unlike the Galaxy S4, which is almost impossible to use outdoors. Viewing angles are top-notch. No matter what angle you want to use, the colors remain their accuracy. Colors are vibrant, the screen can get incredibly bright, and the screen is just fantastic. Next up, I would like to talk about the speakers. So HTC calls the front-facing speakers boom sound because they really do give you an audio experience on a smartphone like you've never heard of before. So as soon as you start to play audio, you will immediately notice that it just sounds amazing. It's really hard to explain this, and with my microphone you can't really demonstrate this either. You really need to just go to a store, load up a song on it, and play it as loud as you can, because with the dual front-facing speakers, it makes you want to use those speakers over something like headphones or even a dedicated audio system. That's how great these speakers sound. And another thing I'd like to talk about is the stock music application. So with this, the app itself is incredibly easy and simple to use. It's easy to navigate. Interface is extremely simple. But you'll see this music note button in the upper right, and this is called the music channel. So this gives you a nice little visualizer for your music, so it gives you something interesting to look at while listening. And depending on the song that you're actually listening to, it can also provide you with lyrics, similar to how Shazam's lyric play feature works. So let me go ahead and show this to you. So here you can see the lyrics that just came up, and behind that you can see a nice little visualizer. So this particular Offspring song works pretty well with the music channel. So I would play more music, but YouTube is pretty difficult when it comes to music like that, and you'll just need to take my word for it that these speakers are amazing. At least in terms of a smartphone. They're really great to listen to. Now, when you go into settings, you'll notice that you have a Beats audio feature. Now, with this left on, you're going to get very clear audio. However, the volume won't be as loud as with this feature turned off. I would easily recommend leaving this feature on because your audio will sound much more immersive, giving you almost a surround sound-like experience that will really make you want to use the speakers over dedicated audio hardware like headphones or a speaker system. Next up, very briefly, I'd like to talk about network performance and call quality. So Sprint's 4G LTE network really isn't anything to write home about, especially here. It's really unreliable and sporadic in terms of performance. 1 minute you might have edge-like performance on LTE, and the next minute you might get some pretty decent speeds in the 7 megabit per second range. That's really not considered 4G though. But you know, this sort of depends on your carrier. Sprint's really not, you know, I'll just stop right there. Call quality though is just fine. It's really about as good as it can get in terms of call quality. Most devices nowadays have good call quality, so there's not too much to explain there. So let's move on to software and features. So this runs HTC Sense version 5 running on top of Android 4.1.2 or 4.2.2 depending on if your carrier provides you with that update. So I think that Sense 5 is the best version of Sense. It's not as intrusive as other versions, and it remains a lot of the regular Android features are still here in terms of the visuals. One of the features though that HTC has added is called Blink Feed, and this is what it looks like. I've never actually used this because to me that's just not the feature for me. However, on the front of the packaging you can see Blink Feed, and what Blink Feed will do is it'll give you some relevant information to the things that you are interested in, such as social networks, news, weather, and things like that. Fortunately, or unfortunately rather, you cannot actually disable that, but you can make it so that another home screen is your primary screen so that it won't actually go there when you press the home button. So another feature that I mentioned earlier is the infrared blaster at the top. So this allows you to control things such as your television, your cable or satellite box, and things like that. So it works really well. Here's what the remote control interface looks like. It's extremely simple, nice and bright, and it looks quite nice. The app can also give you some recommendations on what there is to watch, what's on TV right now, or you could just go to the regular TV guide right here using your own local listings. So back to the music app very briefly. Of any device that I've used, the out-of-the-box music application experience on the HTC One is by far better than the rest. I just wanted to say that. So now back to the overlay part of things. most manufacturers go a bit too far with their customization, and some of these manufacturers include LG and Samsung. HTC's implementation really isn't that bothersome. It's actually quite nice. It's more simple than the other ones to use. I really like the settings application, how everything is made in a vertical way instead of adding tabs up top to make things a little bit more confusing to navigate through. If you'd like to go the stock pure Android route, you can always get the Google edition of the HTC One, which is SIM-free, unlocked, and contract-free, and it gives you the stock version of Android, and you'll also get the latest updates to Android when they're made available. But you'll have to pay full price, which is currently $5.99 on Google Play. Very briefly, I'd like to talk about performance. I'm quite impressed with this. Applications loaded quickly, animations are smooth and snappy, and everything just works like a high-end smartphone in 2013 should. So there really isn't too much to say in regards to performance. Now, battery life, though, is pretty good. I consider it above average. I've never really liked giving people dedicated numbers because several things can make those numbers change and make them not very accurate. So some of those variables include carrier signal strength, your location, the display brightness, and a lot of other things. So I'll just put it this way. This phone can easily get through the day when using automatic brightness, leaving location services on, and using Wi-Fi where appropriate. Now, some of the activities that I've been doing include taking photos and uploading them over Sprint's 3G network, which is not very good. Playing some games, checking email often, and listening to music using the front-facing boom sound speakers. And I was easily able to get through the entire day. Unfortunately, there's no back cover on the One, so the battery is not removable. But you can always purchase an external battery pack or even a battery case to give you even more battery life. So the camera, unfortunately, I didn't test it too much. I did take a couple of shots, and I was extremely satisfied with the way they turned out. Because it's a 4 megapixel camera, your photos aren't that large, so if you transfer them to your computer, for instance, and you want to zoom into them, it won't look as clear when zooming into them as, for example, a 13 megapixel on the Galaxy S4 or even an 8 megapixel on the iPhone 5. But the photo quality is easily better than those other two devices. HTC is really taking a right step by giving the camera a great amount of focus on the smartphone, especially when it comes to low light performance, because this easily knocks the Galaxy S4 and the iPhone 5 out of the water. And the same things really translate to the video performance as well. So to wrap things up, the HTC One is, simply put, the best smartphone out there on the market. If I wasn't so into the iOS ecosystem, I would easily give up my iPhone 5 for this phone. That's how much I've enjoyed using the HTC One. And I've used a number of smartphones, but was never as satisfied with the others as I was with the One. It's simply a fun, fantastically built smartphone with today's latest and greatest in both of hardware and software. And because it's available worldwide, and HTC has put a lot of attention to detail, the HTC One is easily my go-to Android phone that's currently available. And really, it's going to be interesting to see what HTC plans on doing next with maybe the HTC 2. We'll have to see. But that's it with this video. Thanks a lot for watching. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback on this or anything else, feel free to leave those down below in the comments area. But that is it with this video. So thanks a lot for watching, and I'll talk to you all very soon.